Hi, boys and girls. Well, today's book is called If I Ran the Zoo, and it's written by and illustrated by Dr. Seuss for our Seuss Week. Do you like going to the zoo? I like going to the zoo too. Sometimes I wonder about how the animals feel being stuck in the cages, but I know some of the animals are kept there to help keep them safe from humans and the way we are treating the environment. So there are pros and cons. That means good things and bad things about the zoo. Well, Dr. Seuss wrote a book about If I Ran the Zoo. Let's find out what he would do if he ran the zoo. If I ran the zoo. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the fellow who runs it seems proud of it too. So the gentleman that is running the zoo seems pretty proud of it, and Gerald McGrew, a little visitor, thinks it's an okay zoo so far. But if I ran the zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes. That's just what I'd do. The lions and tigers and that kind of stuff they have up here now are not quite good enough. You see things like these in just any old zoo. They're awfully old-fashioned. I want something new. So, if he's going to take care of the zoo, he wants something different than lions and tigers. So I'd open each cage, I'd unlock every pen, let the animals go. I'd start over again. And somehow or other, I think I could find some beasts of a much more unusual kind. So it sounds like he's going to have to go on a trip to find more unusual creatures. A 4-footed lion's not much of a beast. The one in my zoo will have 10 feet at least. 5 legs on the left and 5 more on the right. Then people will state, they'll say, what a sight! This zookeeper, new keeper, Gerald's quite keen. That's the goldarnest lion that I've ever seen. Yeah, I don't even know if that lion would exist, but I guess if Gerald McGrew found it. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people talk. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people gawk at the strangest odd creatures that ever did walk. I'll get for my zoo a new sort of hen who roosts in another hen's top knot, and then another one roosts in the top knot of his, and another in his, and another in his, and so forth, and upward and onward. Gee whiz! So hens that roost on top of each other. But that's just a start. I'll do better than that. They'll see me next day in my zookeeper's hat, coming into my zoo with my elephant cat. They'll be so surprised they'll all swallow their gum. They'll ask when they see my strange animals come, where do you suppose he gets those things like from? His animals all have such very odd faces. I bet he must hunt them in rather odd places. And that's what I'll do, said young Mr. McGrew. If you want to catch beasts you don't see every day, you've got to go places quite out of the way. You have to go places no others can get to. You have to get cold and you have to get wet too. Up past the North Pole where the frozen winds squeal, I'll go and I'll hunt in my schedule-mobile and bring back a family of what do you know? And that's how my new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will grow. Wow, he's caught some strange looking beasts there. They almost look like walrus, but not quite. I'll hunt in the mountains of Zomba-Mantant with helpers who will all wear their eyes at a slant and capture a fine fluffy bird called a bustard who only eats custard with sauce made of mustard, and also a fine beast called a flustard who only eats mustard with some sauce made of custard. Wow, that's pretty specific. I hope they have a good chef and a cook who can make those meals for those fussy animals. I'll catch them in caves and I'll catch them in brooks. I'll catch them in crannies. I'll catch them in nooks that you don't read about in geography books. I'll catch them in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Motafapotafapel. In a country like that, if a hunter is clever, he'll hunt up some beasts that you never saw ever. I guess he's right. If you want to catch strange beasts, you've got to go to strange places. That kind of makes sense. Oh, load up 5 boats with a family of jotes, whose feet are like cows but wear squirrel skin coats, and sit down like dogs but have voices like goats, except they can't sing the very high notes. Those are some unusual beasts. And then I'll go down to the wilds of Nantucket and capture a family of lunks in a bucket. Then people will say, "Now I like that boy heaps. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is growing by leaps. He catches them wild, he captures them meek, he catches them slim, and he catches them sleek. What do you suppose he'll capture next week?" So people are always keeping their eye on McGrew because his zoo is constantly changing. I'll capture one tiny, I'll capture one cute, I'll capture a deer that no hunter would shoot. A deer that's so nice he could sleep in your bed if it weren't for those horns that he had on his head. Wow, those are some pretty big horns for an animal so tiny. And speaking of horns that are just a bit queer, I'll bring back a very odd family of deer, a father, a mother, 2 sisters, a brother, whose horns are connected from one to another. The horns are so mixed you can't tell them apart, can't tell where they end, can't tell where they start. Each deer's mighty puzzled. He's never yet found if his horns are hers or the other way round. Can you imagine being connected by the tops of the horns on your head? I see some unusual shapes in there. I even see a heart. One there, one here. Wow. I'll capture them fat and I'll capture them scrawny. I'll capture a scragglefoot multi-gatwani, a high-stepping animal fast as the wind from the blistering sands of the desert of Zend. This beast is the beast that the brave chieftains ride when they want to go fast to find some place to hide. A mulligatawny is fine for my zoo, and so is a chieftain, so I'll bring back one of them too. In the far western part of southeast North Dakota lives a fine animal called the iota, but I'll capture one who is even much finer, in the northeastern west part of South Carolina. When people see him, they will say, "Now by thunder, this new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is really a wonder." The animal has a lot of hair. Most beasts are quite friendly, but still in some lands, some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly and vicious and mean, I'll build a bad animal catching machine. It's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with a hunter, never get bit. So he doesn't want to get bit, so he's going to make a fancy machine to catch those animals that aren't cooperating. A zoo should have bugs, so I'll capture a thwirl whose legs are snarled up in a terrible snarl. And then I'll go out and capture some chugs, some keen shooter, mean shooter, bean shooter bugs. Whoa, those bugs shoot beans at each other. That's pretty interesting. I'll go to the African island of Yucca and bring back a twizzle-toppled tufted mazurka, a kind of canary with quite a tall throat. His neck is so long if he swallows an oat. For breakfast the first day of April, they say, it has to go down such a very long way that it gets to his stomach on the 15th of May. So can you imagine eating a meal on one day and it's going to take all of that month to get to your belly? Wow. I'll bag a big bug who is very surprising, a fella who has a propeller for rising and zooming around making cross-country hoops from Texas to Boston with only 2 hops. Now that sort of thing for a bug is just tops. And then when I've caught him, the next thing you know, I'll go and capture a wild tic-tac-toe. With X's that win and with zeros that lose, he'll look mighty good in the zoo of McGrew's. So a bug that has almost looks like a helicopter on top that whirls around and around. And then this one is a game. I'll bring back a gusset, a gherkin, a gasket, and also a gooch from the wilds of Nantasket. And 8 Persian princes will carry the basket, but what are their names? I don't know, so don't ask it. Seems like everybody wants to help him get these strange animals in his zoo. In a cave in Khartoum lives a beast called a Natch that no other hunter's been able to catch. He's hidden for years in his cave with a pout, and no one's been able to make him come out. I'll coax him out with a wonderful meal that's cooked by my cooks on my cooker-mobile. They'll fix up a dish that is just to his taste, 3 chicken croquettes made of library paste, then sprinkled with peanut shucks pickled and spiced, and baked at 600 degrees and then iced. It's mighty hard cooking to cook up such feast, but that's how Mnuzu, McGrewzu will get its beasts. So he knows that to get some of his beasts, he's going to need some fancy meals. I'll go to the faraway mountains of Tobolsk, near the river of Nabusk, and bring back an busk, a sort of kind of thingamabusk, who only eats rhubarb and corn on the kabusk. Then people will flock to my zoo and my busk. McGrew, they will say, that's a wonderful jabusk. He hunts with such vim and he hunts with such vigor. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, just gets bigger and bigger. And speaking of birds, there's a Russian Poluski, whose headski is redski and belly is blueski. I'll get one of them for my Zooski McGrewski. Wow. A blueski. Interesting. The whole town will gasp. Why, this boy never sleeps. No keeper before ever kept what he keeps. There's no telling what that young fellow will do. And then, just to show them, I'll sail to Katroo and bring back an Itkutch, a Preep, and a Prue, a Nurgle, a Nerd, and a Seersucker too. Wow, it's bringing back all kinds of interesting beasts. I'll hunt in the jungles of Hippo no Hungus and bring back a flock of the wild Bippobungus. The Bippo no Bungus from Hippo no Hungus are better than those down in Dippo no Dungus, and smarter than those out in Nippo no Nungus, and that's why I'll catch them in Hippo no Nungus, instead of those others in Nungus and Dungus. And people will say when they see these bips bounding, "This zookeeper, new keeper's simply astounding. He travels so far that you'd think he would drop. When do you suppose this fellow's going to stop?" I don't know that he's going to stop. He seems to have quite a taste for getting different things for his zoo. Stop? Well, I should, but I won't stop until I've captured the Physma Wisma Dill, the world's biggest bird from the island of Gwark, who only eats pine trees and spits out the bark. And boy, when I get him back home to my park, the whole world will say, "Young McGrew's made his mark. He's built a zoo better than Noah's whole ark." These wonderful, marvelous beasts that he chooses have made him the greatest of all the McGrewses. This animal looks nice. Got a nice smiley face. McGrew's Zoo. Wow, they'll all cheer. What this zoo must be worth. It's the goldarnest zoo on the face of this earth. It definitely does look like a fantastical zoo. "Yes, that's what I'd do," said young Gerald McGrew. "I'd make a few changes if I ran the zoo." I wonder, what would I do if I ran a zoo? You know what? I think I'm going to design a zoo, and I'm going to design some fantastic animals to place in my zoo. Yep, that's what I'm going to do, and I think you should do it too.